Gotta be,
Jersey.
weekend came come,
Home?
you know, you make mistakes, you learn.
Just one of those
Downstairs.
things happen, so.
He's on his way.
Okay.
Looks like you've been on.
We're going to start anyway. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a special meeting of the Town of Poughkeepsie Planning Board on July 11th, 2018. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Okay, get my pen. Where's my pen? Oh, here it is. I got it. The only item on this evening's agenda is Eastdale Village, McDonald Heights Town Center. Subdivision site plan and special use permit review for a proposed mixed-use development consisting of up to 390 residential dwelling units in apartments and townhomes, up to 124,995 square feet of commercial and non-residential uses, and supporting infrastructure and amenities. 928, 932, 935, and 936 Dutchess Turnpike, and Victory Lane Zone, MHC, McDonald Heights Center, and IH Heavy Industrial Districts, 60.87 acres. Secret findings for type 1 action adopted on March 15th, 2018, Meadowview Properties LLC, Kirchhoff Properties LLC, and Lot 2A Victory LLC owners. And this is a subdivision site plan and special use permit review. It is not a public hearing. Okay, is the applicant ready?
Yes, sir, we are, Mr. Chairman, and we thank you again for having a special meeting tonight. We have again taken the comments that we received from the last public hearing and from the comments that we received from town staff and consultants and planning board, provided a response letter to the town, and we've received a new planning department review letter this evening, which I think we're here to discuss further with the board. So any questions that we can answer regarding the project. Myself, Jeff Kane, Rich Rang, PE from our office, and our staff architect, Giovanni Palladino, are here as well. We also have counsel and our consulting engineer. So again, hopefully we can answer any questions that may arise tonight.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Eric?
The staff and town council have prepared resolutions for your consideration. There's been some ongoing adjustments and tweaking, as you may have seen from email traffic. So you have two resolutions before you tonight. There are also actions recommended. In particular, the update is that the subdivision application for the application has been withdrawn. That has simplified some of the legal follow-up that's required, as the applicant intends to try to complete conditions of approval quickly, and we've been working with them to facilitate that. So that we're recommending that you acknowledge that formally. You have a resolution for that. Then there are the two resolutions prepared by the attorney for the site plan and special use permit approval of the development plan, inclusive of the residential and mixed use. A separate resolution for special use permit approval on the daycare center. And the reason for that was to, in case there are future changes to that, it wouldn't require revisiting special use permit approval for the entire development. And then the applicant could be invited to, there's also the applicant prepared a groundbreaking ceremony plan in order to commence construction or commence preliminary site work prior to anticipated completion of site plan conditions. They've proposed that for your consideration. There's a resolution to allow that to occur on an interim basis. And then lastly, if the applicant wants to proceed with architectural review, assuming that site plan has been approved, then there's a resolution for that.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see. Let me start, Andy, you have any, let me start with the town engineer.
We have issued a revised review letter dated July 9th. Most of the issues that remain are technical in nature. We're kind of slowly ticking off the outstanding issues. There's not really anything new necessarily. We did receive a comment letter from the town water superintendent regarding the connection to the Lutheran Care Center. And he's, based on the water pressures that were modeled by their engineers, he feels that connection through the project site actually is not an advisable plan of action, so that he recommends going back to the original plan to relocate the existing Lutheran Care Center water service to the other side of the valve by the tank, and then also to provide a backflow prevention on the existing fire line, which is not currently installed, it should be, so.
Okay, so that'll be taking care of some woes from years ago.
Yes, that's kind of some old stuff that they're kind of cleaning up.
Is that an issue with it? Anything on your,
Not at all.
Yeah, we've taken the connection to the water connection to Lutheran off of our plans
Right.
based on those findings.
okay, thank you. That's it, thank you. I'd like to acknowledge we have a new member of the planning board, he's an alternate at this point, Bob Nassert at the end. And he'll be just sitting in, he won't be voting or anything because we have a full board, but should someone be out, Bob would be, if available, would be sitting in. So that's great, welcome, Bob. Lisa, anything from your end? I'm sure there's plenty.
Actually, no. The board has before you resolutions for the site plan approval and also for the daycare. You've just been provided with copies, Schedules B and C, which are the legal agreements that need to get completed, the majority of which need to get done before the site plan chair signs the site plan, assuming it gets approved tonight, and a few which will be done thereafter. I can report that the applicant has been working diligently with the town attorney, and many of these are well on their way to getting done, so that's good. There are two changes that need to get made to the daycare center resolution that's before you. The first is there has been changes to the ownership of some of the parcels. So the first paragraph will mirror the ownership of the parcels that's actually currently in the site plan resolution that's before you. And the other change is that the daycare center is highly unlikely to be completed in a year. And rather than have the applicant come back for repeated extensions, we think that since within the site plan context, we have an extension of the completion deadline for 5 years, which is consistent with what the board did in its seeker's finding statement, that we adopt a similar condition that for this use. And if that turns out to be insufficient, then at that point, the applicant can come back and seek an extension if needed. And Schedule A, I don't think that's part of this set yet, but that's simply a printout of the current site plan sheet list that the board has, just so that we have it for reference in the document.
Okay, thank you. Mike, anything you want to add?
No, I think those are the main items.
Go around the board and start with Peter.
Where do things stand with regard to the formation of a transportation corporation?
It's been the opinion of our attorney that no transportation, you're talking sewer?
Yes.
Or what? That no transportation corporation is required for this application.
Okay, and has our council reviewed that opinion, or we?
It's still going back and forth with the town attorney because it's actually a town attorney condition rather than ours. So what we've done for the site plan is we've simply said that if a sewer transportation corporation is required, it will be formed. It is related to the offer of dedication of the facilities to the town and whether the town accepts them, neither of which decisions could be made in the short term in time for this resolution to be resolved.
So it's not.
It's not settled.
Okay.
But it's a major condition.
Yes.
Okay, and that's something that has to be approved by town board.
If there is a transportation corporation that needs to be formed, then that would need to be town board approval.
Okay, got it.
But that's not something that we're saying needs to get settled before the chair would be able to sign the plans. But it would be settled further down the line, either prior to a building permit or a certificate of occupancy as determined.
Absolutely, okay. As long as it's not getting lost in the sauce, that's the biggest problem.
Okay. In the project summary, Section 9 addresses the county health department, and, you're starting some site work there prior to their approval. 9B, there's a phrase called "within a reasonable time period." Last time I used the words "reasonable time" was with my daughter. She wanted to know, when she could come home. I said, "We'll get home within a reasonable time." That was a big mistake. I think for everybody's benefit, I think we have to have a tighter grip on that. The owner applicant shall provide a security to stabilize the site and restore public lands affected by work under the site plan in the event Department of Health approval reasonably consistent with the site plan is not obtained within a reasonable time period. I think we have to tighten that up a little bit. I mean, if you want to.
That's fine. The rest of it says that the following sentence says the timing, amount, and form of the security shall be subject to review and approval of the Director of Municipal Development, Engineer, and Town Council. One of the reasons for that is that the timing for the Department of Health approval is the security would relate to the timing of Department of Health approval because it's intended to address work that would occur between signature of the site plan and the time of Department of Health approval. And the Department of Health approval, they appear to have their own calendar and clock. So it's unclear whether that timing should relate to the issuance of a building permit or at some other point in time, yet to be, that point of time is still in discussion as to what it should be. So it would be fine to provide some guidance, but I wrote it with the intention of allowing that to be determined.
I understand, but wouldn't it be better to have a trigger, say 180 days or something, where something happens first or something doesn't happen, but I mean, just to leave it open-ended doesn't seem to me to be a wise way to go.
Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Finelli is of course correct that yes, I understand, want to have it open-ended, but I believe in the resolution there's a requirement that we have to have health department approval prior to a building permit, and I think that's the kind of trigger you're looking for. I mean, maybe if it took us longer than 180 days to get a building permit for some reason beyond either your or my or the town's control, we wouldn't like to be tied to that time frame. But I think we've got the trigger of we can't get a building permit without it. We may have started site work, but we can't get the building permit. I believe that offers protection the town would need.
You know as well as I do that things happen, and we hope things will go our way. But often dealing with, particularly in your line of work, there are often many unforeseen problems. I would just like to have, since we are responsible here for trying to put our best foot forward.
Right, and we certainly understand, and I say this with all due respect, but I would like the entire board to appreciate that. Right now, there's more than $14 million in cash, which the Kirchhoff and the Dyson families have spent on this project. We are not walking away from this project, and I just want, and I think that's relevant because it's such a big investment. Yes, we're gonna be able to see this through. We're gonna make it happen.
I'm not suggesting that's
right.
going to happen at all. That's not my concern. My concern is that there are a lot of
That's what I was wondering, a year might.
other things that can happen, but that's fine. Speaking of the health department, is the health department aware of the agreement that we're forming here? Have you had any feedback from them at all? Have they voiced a view?
They have, and the view is has been generally positive, and the health department, as are many government agencies, understaffed to be able to get the work out in a quicker manner, and so we've met with them, communicated with them many times over many months. Are they leaning in the right direction? Absolutely, but there's a process that they're going through, and I will,
No,
they literally check every number, and that's good from
I guess
both
I
perspectives.
phrased my
Right,
question
right.
poorly. What I really want to know is, did you specifically discuss with them the fact that you're planning on starting the work without their approval?
Yes, the start site work, yes. We have specifically talked about that, and it's not atypical.
I understand it's not typical.
No,
but
not atypical, sorry.
Okay.
It is, yeah, it happens frequently.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Dan?
I don't see anything that would prevent me from approving this at this point to go ahead, so I'm okay with things.
Thank you. Carl?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a long road, a lot of stuff going on here. As I think I've said before, I appreciate the applicant has come in with a project that is consistent with our town master plan and the zoning of this area. That said, I know it's been an open land farm for a long time, and there's a few close neighbors that are, concerned about everything changing. So I urge you to be mindful of them as the project proceeds, especially during construction, noise, dust, whatever. I think McCaffrey is one of the closest ones. I don't know if you worked with him on the fence color and that kind of stuff, but just to his satisfaction.
We have, and you might notice that there's an existing line of trees adjacent to their
Yes,
property. They asked
right.
us to replace, though we had planted some evergreens for permanent screening. They said,
McCaffrey's, right?
Yeah.
Right, McCaffrey's. Yeah, they've asked those please be changed to a cherry tree. So we've worked with them on the fencing, on the screening. Yes, they are our closest neighbor, and so we are
Yeah, and the
cognizant.
car lights from the parking would be heading toward them, so.
Yep.
Okay. I just, might make a suggestion, you might want to consider like time-lapse cameras or something like that for such a project this big to see how it progresses.
That's to memorialize what goes on. I'm trying to understand what.
Along those, just neat to see, I think.
Oh, okay.
SUNY New Paltz did that, there's some new building over there, and, went through in a minute, saw the whole construction of the whole thing. And
Okay, that's pretty cool, yeah.
just something to think about.
Helps with theft and vandalism as well.
Could help. Other than that, and you wanted to do some early stuff for groundbreaking there, is any of that gonna be reused for a construction entrance or anything like that, or
The entrance.
the early groundbreaking work here that you're
Yeah.
planning to do?
It's in
Yeah,
the-
we had hoped to do that in such a manner that we wouldn't be undoing or redoing work. So absolutely, we didn't want to just disturb additional acreage.
Okay.
So yes.
Will that be the main entrance? Will that be the main construction entrance
Or one of them?
on that side?
That will be the main construction entrance on that side, yes. Right.
If you look at this, one of the plans that's in the submission for section 1, the first phase, we show where the staging area is going to be and the construction trailers, and that's basically in the same location as where the groundbreaking is going to be.
Okay, that, I was checking because it changed from previous, that was toward the main entrance.
Yeah. No, we wanted to actually move the construction aspect away from the main entrance so that when the main entrance actually becomes the main entrance, we don't have to move all the construction.
Makes sense.
Facilities at that time, so.
All right, thanks, that's all I have at this time.
Brian?
No, I'm all set. I just thank you for your patience, and I understand the investment that's already been made, so we're cognizant of that. And no, it's been very forthright and informative. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, hi, you guys have certainly done a lot of work here. Just, again, for my edification, if I just want to, on a high level, you're thinking 4 phases over approximately 5 years. Is that based on market conditions and all the disclaimers? I understand all that. I just want to make sure that we restated again.
The faster we get done, the better it is for us and the better it is for the town.
Yeah, because you certainly have invested a fair amount of money already, so I know you're committed.
Yep.
So at least for phase 1, anyway.
And like we said before, we don't want to come in and build empty structures and leave them empty. It doesn't serve us, it doesn't serve the town. So, the market's really what's going to drive the construction schedule. And Joe has been spending a lot of his time lately, actually, talking to prospective users and tenants on the site. So he's actually made some very good headway with many of them. So I think things are really starting to come together. So
Okay, I know you guys have got your project plans in place and you've got the target dates. Do you have a target date for phase 1 that you're willing to share with us?
To start or to end?
Both.
Right, so we hope to break ground within the next 4 weeks, full scale, and we anticipate it's about a year construction for the first building, which we anticipate being the larger L-shaped residential building will be the first building we think will be operational. But of course, to do that, there's a lot of roadway and water and sewer infrastructure that has to go in place. So once that first building is in, that means the infrastructure is in place for the next buildings to really kind of go a little quicker. But it's about a year. The construction guys aren't in the room because they'll tell me 14 months, but we think it's about a year.
All right, well, you've got an attractive plan and hope it works out for you. Thank you.
thank you.
Nicole?
So I just wanted to reiterate what Carl said about light pollution. We just want to make sure that you have those fixtures downlit, that we don't get the glare onto 44, but also the glare onto the resident property. I also noticed that your downspouts were not shown for your proposed garages, so I just wanted to mention that. And I don't know if this would really be to you or to Lisa, but I noticed that the water sewer line on Victory Lane is privately owned, correct? So as far as the water sewer to the pavilion, something's going to have to be done there, correct?
Right, that's part of the agreements that will be worked out. Let's just leave it at that, though. We're aware of that, and it's on the list of agreements.
Okay, all right, and I think that was it, so good luck.
Thank you.
I got a couple of comments. Obviously, I'm assuming that you've been in touch with the Lutheran Care, and they're aware that it's going to be quite a bit of activity going on down the hill, and hopefully you'll mitigate any impact on them. And I'm a little concerned about the construction entrance on that road that goes up there, the people coming and going and visitors and what have you, so need to be cognizant that that's a pretty heavily used road at particular times of the day, I'm sure.
Mr. Chairman, there are 2 things. One is, I'm certain it's in the record, but we have kept Lutheran Care very well apprised of the project, and they've submitted correspondence to the board advising of that. Yes, there are that construction entrance. There's two entrances initially for construction, one on 44 and one off of Concord Village Drive. That Concord Village Drive construction entrance is also proposed. It's the same location as the permanent road that connects to Concord Village Drive. Again, we put it there to not duplicate work. So the full intent is to take the construction traffic directly off of 44 into the site. That secondary entrance is exactly that. It's a secondary entrance because you want to make sure you have, if something goes wrong, gets blocked or whatever, we just have a way out. But that is absolutely our our intent.
Okay. I'm glad to know that we're going to finally correct some of those water problems that they've had up there since that infrastructure was put in when Lutheran Care was built back in, I won't even say. So that's a very positive thing. Your relationship with the Dutchess County Board of Health, I assume, is on a, I'm assuming you have a good relationship with them. So would you just venture an anticipated time when you get their approvals? It's a venture, not a,
Difficult to give you a time frame. However, one of the things that is actually expediting their ability to approve the project was the fact that we've withdrawn the subdivision application. That was complicating things for them in terms of how they were reviewing it. Okay. Since that's been done, we've taken one of their concerns, one of their major concerns, off the table. So we feel that we should be able to secure a technical design approval from them in the near future, indicating that technically everything's going to work just fine, and then basically approve the site plan. The subdivision application, it requires a separate approval from them because you have to file the plat and they have to approve it for filing. So it created a couple of other questions on their side that we couldn't answer for them just yet. So we think it's going to go quicker than we originally anticipated it was going to go because we don't have to address those subdivision-related items at this particular point in time in order to be able to get approval to start the construction project itself.
okay. And of course, that ties into the Transportation Corporation, should it be necessary, once you take it to the town board, and however that works out, right?
Right.
Yeah, I would also add that the county has a priority project process, and we have qualified for that program. So we're working closely not only with specifically Department of Health personnel, but the county, the entire county leadership to keep this project on top of the pile as much as can happen. So
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, so.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask you a quick question, just for my own mind and some clarification, and just for the record? It's my understanding that as a board, when we are considering a final site plan approval, we have three options. One is to reject it for whatever good reason there is. One, to accept it as it's proposed without any changes. We consider it full and complete and it's ready for a signature. Or you have a conditional site plan approval where once the conditions are met, the chairman and whatever authorized person appointed will sign the plans, building permits can be issued. Now, I am not familiar with a conditional site plan approval where work is permitted to go forward without the signature of the chairman or any other condition. And I would just like to know before we vote tonight, are we setting a precedent here, or is this something that is an established procedure?
Are you talking about the specific motion that Eric has proposed for the groundbreaking?
I'm talking particularly about the going ahead with work, infrastructure work, without health department approval.
That would be after chairman's signature.
Not according
right?
to this.
There's two options.
I think there's two issues. I thought you were going to ask about the applicant's proposal to begin site work, which is in your packets. Is that what you were talking about?
Yes.
And with respect to the planning board's approval, that's the reason for that resolution, is that you are correct. Ordinarily, site work does not occur prior to signature. It's in your packet because in this instance, the board may have the authorization to allow it to proceed prior to site plan signature. The applicant, Jeff may want to elaborate, the applicant has proposed to do a certain amount of activity as shown on that preliminary plan, basically a gathering area, curb cut access, construction fencing, and erosion controls for the purpose of preparations. And they're asking for that.
That was less than 1 acre of disturbance.
Right, that's different from the Department of Health issue. The applicant has two options as far as Department of Health. One is obtain approval and proceed in accordance with the usual course of events. If the applicant wants to proceed in advance of their receipt of Department of Health approval, but that would still be subsequent to the chair's signature on the plan, as it's not a condition that would have to be satisfied prior to. So, but if they wanted to proceed, then what the town is asking for is some form of performance guarantee, as well as a letter that the applicant understands they're proceeding at their own risk.
Okay.
And I think what's, if I could, I'm sorry, if I could, the idea of proceeding with infrastructure, our intent is not to proceed with infrastructure as you might define it in terms of pipes in the ground, no water, no sewer, no drainage. It's, the infrastructure is the gravel parking lot and a curb cut onto 44. That's the limit of the disturbance that we propose. And maybe it doesn't matter in your mind, but it really is somewhat limited in nature, that if that
I would have no
helps.
problem if we could state that specifically. That does not include sewer lines and water lines and so forth, that type of infrastructure. That's fine with me.
Okay.
And I think that is what's shown on the groundbreaking
Right.
plan, and that's been reviewed as well by the engineering department to make sure that that what's being proposed doesn't violate any issues related to the SWIP or anything like that.
Okay.
Should we add a note that just says no subsurface piping to be
Yes.
installed? Is that helpful?
Just to point out the item 3A in the staff memo, it says, site preparation activities as shown for the groundbreaking ceremony plan shall be limited to a period of 90 days. Any other site preparation activity shall not be permitted until after signature of the site plan.
Yeah, my concern
And the issue,
was with 9.
I think we're into semantics a little bit. 9B?
9A and B.
Actually, the way 9 is written, it does say prior to chair's signature. I think our plan was for 9 to be subsequent to chair's signature, but prior to a building permit. Is that
Well, it
not?
says prior to chairman's signature or prior to issuance of a building permit if these other conditions are met, and the conditions being the letter, assuming the risk basically for going ahead, and then also the restoration, right? The understanding that that would be required.
Okay, so this is not addressing sewer lines and water lines.
I think at that point, they are probably looking to, after the signature,
After the signature.
but prior to,
After the signature and the issuance of building permit, but prior to, should the Board of Health approval not be done by that point.
But our
Is
building
that what
permit
you're
is,
saying?
our building permit's tied to the health department approval too, I believe.
That's true, so they can't, so that, you gotta have the Health Department approval to get the building permit fully executed. Am I saying that correct?
that's
So that,
Yeah.
so that covers it.
Also, number 9 doesn't relate to the timing of, it doesn't place controls upon the timing of construction, other than what is normally permitted. It addresses only the sequence of Department of Health approval. So that's why there are two separate terms
I
here.
understand, I just wanted to be, words are important. I think it's important that we stated clearly that this is not.
Covered in there? Okay. I will say that over the years, the process has become much tighter, especially with the, dating myself, advent of a lot of applications and software and things, that this stuff is all interconnected and departments don't, they speak together and they speak often, so that there's an interlock between things not happening out of sequence. Does that make sense? A lot better than it was 20, 30 years, 40 years ago. So I think that's all to the benefit, everyone's benefit, the residents, the applicants in the town. So I think that works pretty well.
Yeah, see, there's an old saying, better to talk 10 times before than one time after.
Measure twice, cut once.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Any other further comments? Okay, Carl?
I move that the planning board acknowledge withdrawal of the subdivision application for the Eastdale Village project in accordance with correspondence dated July 9th, 2018 from Jeff Kane, Kirchhoff Properties LLC, and dismiss the application.
Second.
Moved and seconded, the planning board acknowledge withdrawal of the subdivision application for the Eastdale Village project in accordance with correspondence dated July 9th, 2018 from Jeff Kane, Kirchhoff Properties LLC, and dismiss application. Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
I move that the planning board adopt the attached resolution of conditional site plan approval and special use permit approval for multifamily dwellings and mixed residential and non-residential uses within multi-story structures for the Eastdale Village project, FKA,
Formerly known as.
McDonald Heights, subject to conditions of the June 21st, 2018 deferred action by the planning board, and as supplemented by subsequent comments of town departments, other agencies, and the planning board.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Did I have a question in here? Let me think here. Do I need to say something about, you spoke about the daycare, special use permit?
That's the next one.
Is it the
Well,
next
the
one?
daycare is the next,
We'll make sure we'll make that change in that one, okay.
right, at the next motion. As for this motion, the only thing that's on my short list is the first, on Schedule B, the first legal instrument is actually the instrument that it's going to be attached to. So number 1 should actually be changed to just the special permit approval for the daycare. And then I think we have a master list that we've gone over with the planning board, with the applicant, of agreements that are needed, and we will endeavor to have that completed. I believe that this list represents all of them, but as I sit here right now, I can't say that it does. So it may be that there's additional agreements, but I believe they are also already captured in the comments that are referenced in the agreement. So, but we may need to update this list, which we will do by tomorrow.
Okay. So it's moved and seconded the planning board adopt the attached resolution of conditional site plan approval and special use permit approval for multifamily dwellings and mixed residential and non-residential use within the multi-story structures for the Eastdale Village project, formerly known as the McDonald Heights Town Center, subject to conditions of the June 21st, 2018 deferred action by the planning board as supplemented by subsequent comments of town departments, other agencies, and the planning board. And call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
I move that the planning board adopt the attached resolution of conditional special use permit approval for the daycare facilities for the Eastdale Village project, formerly known as McDonald Heights Town Center, subject to conditions of the June 21st, 2018 deferred action by the planning board, as supplemented by subsequent comments of town departments, other agencies, and the planning board.
And with 2 amendments to the printed version, the first being that the first paragraph, the owners shall be amended to conform with the site plan resolution, and the second being that a provision will be added for the extension of time to be, so that the project will be completed within 5 years.
Second. Been moved and seconded the planning board adopt the attached resolution of conditional use, special use permit approval for the daycare facility for the Eastdale Village project, formerly known as McDonald Heights Town Center, subject to conditions of the June 21st, 2018 deferred action by the planning board, as supplemented by subsequent comments of town departments, other agencies, and boards, and with the 2 amendments relating to the amount of time to be 5 years and the ownership, the proper ownership being corrected. And call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
I move that the planning board authorize site preparation activities limited to the attached Eastdale Village groundbreaking ceremony plan prior to endorsement of Eastdale Village site plan by the planning board chairman, conditioned upon the following: A through
D.
A through D.
It's been moved and seconded that the planning board authorize site plan preparation activities limited to the attached Eastdale Village groundbreaking ceremony plan prior to the endorsement of the Eastdale Village site plan by the planning board chairman, conditioned upon the following A, B, C, and D. Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Are you prepared to do architectural review?
We are, Mr. Chairman, for buildings 1, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11.
Okay. Obviously, over the period of the next X number of years, you'll be coming back in for additional architectural reviews for
I'll introduce Giovanni Palladino from our office to talk through it, but I just want to point on the site plan again, which buildings we're talking about. This is the overall site, Dutchess Turnpike, so I'm going to go to the blow-up of that. This is Dutchess Turnpike 44 on the bottom. So the buildings are Building 1, which is the large three-story multifamily building. So Giovanni will talk about the architecture there. And then buildings 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. In particular, buildings 10 and 11 are in phase 1, but the architecture is the same, being presented the same for each of those. So you'll see that in the presentation here.
Yes. A question. 7 was the corner building, right?
1 is the L-shaped building.
2 and 3 here.
7's the corner
So, yeah.
here. Is that what you're saying?
1,
That's 1. Is
Yeah,
that,
right.
the ones next to it, those are,
That's 2 and 3.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 7, 8, 9, 10.
oh, okay, I got the two.
When we numbered them, it made sense. It wasn't necessarily today.
Got it. So it's all those buildings.
Yes.
Jeff, could you just repeat which buildings you're intending to address tonight? I think
1, and then 7 through 11.
1 and 7 through 11?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess we're curious why it wasn't 2 and 3 were not on that list. They're consistent.
Well, the answer is going to be that, yeah, right, they are going to be very similar, just we haven't finished the architecture yet, so I didn't have anything to show you.
Okay.
But it's going to be very similar, but we're just not there.
Just can't wait to come back to another meeting.
Well, I have a feeling we'll be here again, right?
Hi, good evening. As Jeff mentioned, Giovanni Palladino with Kirchhoff, in-house architect. I'm going to first start off with buildings 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, which is what we call our hybrid walk-up. It's the smaller of the two buildings that we're presenting. So basically, this is the elevation, the front elevation. This actually has two fronts. We've got a front along this drive here, and then also on the back side. So it has two fronts and then a side. The entrances for the upstairs units are actually served through an alley between the two buildings. And the other flats that are at first level, all the units on a first level are actually apartments on grade. And then you would enter from the side and you would have a two-story townhouse stacked above it. Okay, so the style of architecture is typical of the Hudson Valley vernacular, sort of colonial. So we're introducing around the entrances some stone, and I brought some samples of the stone if you want to see that. And then we're using two different size lap siding. It's a vinyl siding, which would be the lower levels got a broader height in this Oxford blue or a blue-gray. The upper portion is a softer white, sort of like a linen or a snow white. All the trim will be white, including the windows, and the stone will be this natural ledgestone color, with the roof being an architectural black shingle with some speckles of gray and blue. And I've brought a sample of that too if you want to see that. So what would that look like? Oh, they're already there. So this is the typical of what it's going to look like after it's been rendered. The two different colors here, the white trim and the stone with the black roof that you really can't see in this elevation, maybe more on this one. And you could see the buildings, what they would look like along that street. We kept the buildings close to the sidewalk, so it really gives you that sense of walkability with these entrances. What you don't see are the entrances for the upper unit, which are actually positioned between the two buildings.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Yeah?
Any question on this building so far?
She said you're using vinyl versus hardy plank or anything.
We're using vinyl just because it's easier for us to maintain. The type of vinyl that we're using, though, is a high-grade vinyl. It's almost the same cost as a hardy, but it's easier for us to maintain. It can be cleaned. Our building.
Pressure wash or whatever.
Yeah, our buildings we typically try to clean every year. with pressure washing, and it's going to cause, with hardy, that you run into problems with warranties and paint peeling. We don't want that situation. Okay? And the stone is it's a
What's
cultured
going to
stone
be
product.
the material of those pillars there?
These are what they call I don't know if you're familiar with the manufacturer, HB&G. It's actually a cementatious type of column that will be painted white.
So is it, what type of material though? Is it like?
They call it cementatious. It's actually a form of concrete with fibers in it.
Okay.
And they form it, HB&G is probably the one that's most well-known.
Gotcha.
It's paintable. When you touch it, it's very solid. It's painted, it takes paint very well.
Okay.
It won't be a vinyl. Everything around the main entrances, we tried to use a natural product like stone or that composite material on the lower level. These other places here, you're not really going to be touching too much because it's behind landscaping. It's off the path. Okay?
The side alley entrances, is that, in terms of visibility and lighting, you don't have an image of them, but is that going to be, how's that going to look? And
well, the distance between the building is fairly substantial. There are sidewalks that connect the two sidewalks here. It's going to be very well lit, and we'll also have their own little portico or little front porch. So when you enter each unit, you probably can't see from this distance, but you'll see little walkways here. And again, we just wanted so that there wasn't a lot of too many doors along.
Are there windows on those sides of the building too?
Yes, completely.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. Where's the elevation?
How come you use black roofs? I mean, wouldn't a lighter colored roof be more energy efficient? I mean.
Not necessarily.
No?
We're pretty energy efficient as it is.
I know, most of the work I've seen is
The
very energy
gradation in
conscious.
color for heat between a brown roof or a black roof, what ends up happening, the color roofs, they start to fade over time. So we're trying to avoid that a little bit. And it's hard to get a siding to match those colors. About 20 years ago, the trend was, green roofs with yellow houses. Now that becomes very dated. The point here, what we're trying to do is we're trying to make these buildings so they don't become dated quickly.
Okay.
So that's why the style of architecture is traditional, the colors are more traditional. We're trying to make sure that in 20, 25 years, it still looks like, a current building.
Can you point out the windows on the sides? Yeah.
Yeah, these are the two sides here. You can see all the windows, the fenestration here, and here's your entrances, again, with stone outlining and making sure that people understand that that's the main entrance, and a little portico here. So these are the two.
Right. It may be hard to see, but we've probably got 10, 12 windows on each 16 windows. How many are on each
It's an
end?
excess of 20.
20, so.
Great, thank you.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
So the first floor is one.
It's 37 windows.
Above the two-floor
Well, they're,
Two and three. Yeah, I got a question.
townhouses,
Yep.
right?
The first floor will be a one-floor apartment?
Right, those will be
Then
flats.
Followed by a two-story townhouse.
And that's to provide some diversity in what we're offering.
Rental at this point?
Yep.
These are all intended to remain rentals, yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
We're trying to offer different floor plans so that we can offer it to a broader spectrum of people. And what we're hearing through our studies is that, the older people would prefer to be on the first floor, one-level living, want to be able to walk their dog. And then the families that have actually children or multiple residents, they prefer the stacked townhouse, so you kind of have the same families in the same building.
What are the approximate square footage of the one floors?
They range, the smallest one I think is around 600 square foot for a one-bedroom, and then it goes all the way up to a three-bedroom upstairs that's closer to 1,800 or 1,900 square feet.
The two-story?
The two-story unit, yep. So when you come upstairs, you'll have a living room, kitchen, a little dinette with an internal staircase that goes upstairs, and there's 3 bedrooms with 2 full baths.
So will all of the one stories be one bedroom or? will
We
there
have
be
the
some
internal
bed-
units, these internal units are ones, and the ones on the end are twos. Because I need that additional
Okay.
ability to add the windows for the second bedroom for egress.
How big is that two-story first floor unit, do you recall? How many square feet is that?
Two-story townhouse upstairs?
Two-story first floor. I'm sorry, two-bedroom first floor. Do you know? how-
Yeah, I think it's around 700 and change, somewhere around there.
Did he say rent or square feet?
Okay, so then I'll move over to the next building type.
pretty good.
This one's actually on 3 boards because there's multiple sides. Where's that one elevation, Jeff? Oh, the original site plan. Anyway, it's an L-shaped building. So this is as close as we could, I guess you would call it as a main front elevation. Again, there's multiple fronts here. As you can see, there's an L shape here, but even on this side, there's three elevations. So what we're trying to do here is basically replicate that same architecture. We're actually adding a little bit of some cupola, some false chimneys that were actually going to be used for venting. And again, going back to that sort of that Hudson Valley farmhouse style vernacular, even though it's 3 stories. On the lower level, we're trying to use as much stone as possible. We have covered entranceways. And again, the pattern of the siding changes as you go up the building. So on that upper level, it looks like it appears to be an actual dormer. So it's not a full 3 stories. You'll see that there's the roof line is actually here with some brackets to try to scale the building down a little bit. You'll see it here.
Yep.
Okay. And this one here, the internal part of the L that's actually facing the green will have the option of balconies. And the colors here we're changing a little bit. So this is what we call a sterling gray. And again, the same linen color or snow white, white trim for windows and for casing, stone, and then again, the architectural shingle. I'll show the other elevations here. It looks a little funny because it starts to bend through here, but as you could see that all sides have a formal side. So it's architecture 360 degrees on these buildings.
There's elevator now, right?
You can see the balconies.
I think so.
You get a sense that these units that are facing the greens will have that ability to have some outside living, and that's sort of what the market is telling us.
So that was going to be an option?
No, well, meaning that if you want that option, you have to move in that unit. Not every apartment will have a balcony.
Gotcha.
Do you have windows on the dormer end of these buildings?
Windows in the dormer?
Yes.
On the short
On the
end?
Yeah, on the short ends, there's windows throughout.
Were there? Are they faux windows or real windows?
No, they're all the windows here that were shown, except for these up here. You're talking about the ones in the gable? These are just decorative, but the ones that are on the side here and above in this area above the false roof line, that's all everything's functional, operable. We're trying to throw as much light.
I'm trying to recall, is there an elevator in the 3-story?
This building is fully elevated, formal lobby, very nicely appointed corridors.
So these are, this and this building, they're all 1-floor apartments?
Everything's 1 floor, and they're 1s and 2s.
A similar size? All the apartments are gonna be 600, 700?
They range. There's actually a broader spectrum here. They start in the 500 square foot range, and I think the largest one is in the 1,400 to 1,500 square foot range, but there's different variations.
Okay.
And because of the angle of the building, there's some interior corners of the building and the exterior that kind of like, they're unique apartments. There's only 3 of each of those because they're in a position where we couldn't really create one that would fit throughout.
What was the total unit count again in that building?
I think this one was 51, 50?
50.
Right.
50?
Yeah,
50.
Okay. So that's building 1.
That's right.
What do you anticipate the differences to be in 2 and 3?
I think architecturally it'll look the same, except that it's going to be what we call a bar building. It's just a straight rectangle. So we have some schematic sketches for it. It just hasn't been finalized yet. But the architecture, the detailing will be the same. It's just that it's straight as opposed to having all these angles that we have to deal with.
Principally, the 2 legs of the L building are going to comprise the bar building, as Joe was calling it. So the apartment layout is going to be very similar. The exterior is going to be very similar on those 2
Okay,
legs.
so it carries the same theme?
Yes.
That's right. So if you took this is one of the legs here. If you just imagine that just stretched out a little bit more, that's what it would look like, maybe with a cupola here. We're still working through that.
Gotcha.
Again, the units that would be facing the green would have balconies on the end.
Which one you want?
Any other questions or comments?
The only thing I was wondering, on the right side of that image, there's sort of a double pitch gable.
Here, yep.
Yeah, is there a purpose for that, or is that, I mean, is there?
We were trying to break the mass down. The buildings are fairly substantial, so we were just trying to break the mass to make it seem like there were maybe individual buildings that might have been connected at one time. It's just an architectural thing. It's
So
just
does
a
that part of the
preference.
building come out a little further too?
A
or-
little bit, not
little bit,
much,
not
just,
much.
it's very subtle.
Okay.
Just enough to give some texture. When these
Right.
buildings are so long, you don't want them flat. You kind of want that texture a little bit so that it's broken up.
That makes sense.
It gives us an opportunity too, if you looked at, we've changed colors from here to here. But again, if you look at the color pattern, the two colors complement each other.
Yeah.
They both have grays. So we're not trying to become too loud. Really, we want the buildings to be background buildings. We don't want them, we're gonna put a lot of color in the buildings that are on the main street because that's really the focus, once those buildings are developed. But for right now, we want these to kind of define the edge of the green and really give you that public space. And the building should really be a border of the green and not, the green should be the focus, not the buildings.
Mr. Palladino, I
Yes.
think you were here before.
Yep.
And I think I told you once before that I think you've done a terrific job. It's not easy taking a large, what could be a monolithic structure and making it look like that, make it inviting. As you said, break it down and make it appear very inviting. It's a nice job.
Thank you.
Very nice job. You took something that could look cookie cutter and box like and made it special. I
And
think.
it offers such a variety of housing types as well.
Yeah, that was our intent.
He's gonna have gas heat,
These will have gas.
gas heat,
Yep, each unit will have its
Cooking,
own individual.
fireplaces in any of them?
No, we're not doing fireplaces.
The HVAC units will be on the ground?
No, actually, we've gone with these, if you could see here, these are the grills. These are actually a packaged unit, which is an air handler and a condenser all built in one package. So we didn't have a farm of 50 condensers on the ground or 50 condensers on the roof.
That's great.
The other building that we looked at previously will have some condensers on the floor just because there's a lot less units, and we're actually going to put them in between the buildings, and we've strategically placed them behind landscaping, so they'll disappear. But nothing on the roofs.
I like that.
It's interesting, never seen that integrated into the building before. That's
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty
Concept.
common right now in multifamily, especially in units that are above 2 stories. They're very efficient, gas, everything is a box, and then if you ever have a problem with it, you actually take the whole unit out and you put a new unit in. So we'll stock some of those units. And our water heater is also tankless. So it's a small unit that mounts right up to the wall.
That's very good.
Yeah, the equipment is gonna be pretty high efficient.
Yeah. Where are the meters and things like that for Hudson access? They have to go inside the building to the basement or a control room, or is they just in the back of the
Well,
building?
in this building here, there is a meter room for both the
meter
water and the electric meters. Unfortunately, the gas meters can't be inside, so they'll be
Right.
sporadically placed around the perimeter.
Landscaping or whatever.
Yep,
okay.
very heavily landscaped.
Good.
Are the balconies, they're functional or decorative?
No, they're functional. They'll actually be a weatherproof, it's a walkable vinyl surface so that nothing will spill. So if you're outside having a glass of wine and you spill your wine, it doesn't stain the person below you or get on their head or anything like that. So they're actually a walkable mat. When it goes down, it'll actually almost look like this flooring here. It's vinyl, it's sheet vinyl. They're using it now in a lot of rooftop decks.
Great. Anything else?
I move that the planning board require architectural review approval for all structures in the development by phase or smaller groups, buildings, discretion of the planning board. Submittal for architectural review shall conform to the design concept identified in seeker review, and the planning board in its discretion may require comparison to previously approved buildings in the development.
Second.
And moved and seconded, the planning board require architectural review approval of all structures in the development by phase or by smaller groups of buildings at the discretion of the planning board. Submittal for architectural review shall conform to the design concepts identified in secret review, and the Planning board, in its discretion, may require comparison to previously approved buildings in the development. Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
I move that the planning board grant architectural review approval according to the elevations, renderings, and material samples submitted for buildings 1, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11.
Second.
Great. I move the planning board grant architectural review approval according to the elevations, renderings, and materials submitted for buildings 1 and 7 through 11. Call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 0. Okay. Okay, well, we're going to see you again, I'm sure, on certainly architectural reviews. I wouldn't be surprised if there's changes that come along that may need our attention. But I compliment you on your steadfast approach to getting this done. It's been a long process. I compliment the board and all of our consultants and everybody involved, Andy and Lisa and staff. The last 2 weeks have been very, very hectic up here, I think, for everybody, and I think it was certainly well worth it. You're well on your way. And this is the largest project in the town of Poughkeepsie since the building of the Galleria in '86. So that's pretty good milestone, I think, and I think it's great for the town, so.
Well,
Well done.
Mr. Chairman and board and staff and consultants, and, thank you all, and Joe's not here, but Joe has expressed his thanks. I feel like this is an Oscar, thank you, but I really do want to just say that, right, my time is up, but I do want to say thank you. I mean, I'll just say, I don't know how many nights, 7:30, I'm calling Eric, and he's at his desk and answering, so I just want to make sure you understand that we understand the dedication your staff has put into to review. It's a very complicated project. As Mr. Finelli said a couple months ago, the amount of legal work on this is in some ways staggering. There's a lot to make sure that it all comes together, and we appreciate the perseverance of each of you, the time you've put in, the time the staff has put in to make this happen, and we hope you will be as proud of this as we are when it's up. So thank you.
Thank you.
What he's.
Do we have a motion to terminate the meeting?
I move we terminate the meeting.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.